Brought to you by Hallow, the world's #1 prayer app. The most powerful line you've given me is grief demands a witness.
Grief demands a witness.
Every civilization, every faith community in all of human history have had a moment where people sit down and say, tell me your story. And so often, like, I lost my husband, stop. What was his name? Like, we're gonna tell the story. I want to. There's something so powerful. Let me ask you this: you manage these amazing global online grief communities. I have made the case, and tell me if I'm wrong, that in many ways, storytelling, being with, if you will, digitally is like Twinkies. It's calories, but it's not rich food. Have you noticed a difference between in-person and online?
I started there.
Okay.
I mean, listen.
I love being wrong, so tell me if I'm wrong.
When the pandemic hit, people were like, you got to move online. And I was like, I don't know that emotions translate. And one of my buddies said, have you ever seen a movie?
And
I'm like,
yes.
Oh, all right, yeah. Now, here's the thing. On a Zoom call, I see your face just like this. I mean, I wish I could tell you. I mean, look, if you came in and you smelled bad, I wouldn't know it on a Zoom.
Right.
But every other thing, I get every little expression. And here's the thing, people go, when they hear there's a grief group, they go, oh, I don't want to be online with 6 people. I'm like, no, there's hundreds. There's hundreds. And the shocking thing about it is there's some people who are like, hey, I got a question. I went, you've asked a question yesterday. Like, let's have, But there's other people who are in the back, have never turned their Zoom on. They've never, you can be anonymous or you can be in the front row.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's shocking about it is I do topics, we do check-ins, and I do one-on-ones. And in the one-on-ones, it's me and that person, and hundreds of people are watching it. They don't get seen in that moment. We find each other in each other's stories.
That's it.
And we find our healing in each other's stories. I mean, I get tons of emails of people who go, oh my gosh, that person asked the question I didn't even know was the question I had. That was the one I needed for my healing.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never even thought to ask that. And they did. And you went there and you healed them. And I go, I didn't heal them. They healed them.
Did, yeah.
And you found your healing in them and then in yourself. So I think it does work.
It does work.
I
Excellent.
think it does
All
work.
right. Well, thank you for changing my mind on that.
I am never going to be face-to-face with people in Australia and New Zealand and the UK and, all over the US. And it's like and boy, let me tell you, when there's sometimes I'll do these free online events. We have 40,000 people.
Right.
You talk about how universal grief is. That I speak the same language. Wait, you're in rural Alaska? You haven't seen another person in weeks? And yet
you hurt too.
We're connected. You hurt too.
Yeah, I guess, man, listening to you talk about that makes me think I am in charge of food distribution after a huge traumatic weather event. And I hold back the food because it's not, Michelin star quality. People are hungry. Let's get food.
Yeah.
Let's get food.
Yeah.
And let's not negotiate calories right now.
Look, I tell people
need
if
grief.
there's an amazing grief group down the block at your church, you don't need us.
Right.
And I'll tell you, grief is overwhelming and exhausting, that it's people are like, oh no, I need the church group, I need your group, and I need my counselor, and I need my clergy. And it's still barely enough to hold me together,
The answer should be yes. Yeah. Especially in our world where we're so lonely, right? And we don't have regular groups of people in our lives just as a way of being to help.
And people in those groups, The first question I ask, you come on, you start to talk, and I go, how long has your loved one been dead? And I tell the group, and here's why I'm asking, there is no timeline in grief.
Right.
But if you are, it's a week ago, it's a month ago, I'm sitting there witnessing.
That's it.
Being there, sitting with you in compassion.
Yeah.
You're 4 years in and you aren't getting out of the house, or you're not getting back in relationships, or you're not living life. I'm going to be a little tougher coach.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, like there's different moments. There's not one size fits all.
Yeah. I often tell folks who just experienced loss, you probably will not remember this conversation. I want you to remember you exhaled once, right? And I want you to remember that.
Right.
You're not going to remember the exact. In fact, they used to tell us, bring a brochure or something, because no one's going to remember.
Right.
They can. That's okay.
Right.
What do you tell the person who is sitting not so much in the loss moment yet, but it's not fair moment?
Luckily, I had so many teachers to draw on. You know, I'm a reserve specialist with my local police department. I ran a group for police officers whose children died by suicide with the officer's gun. Wait. You're protecting our world. You're showing up in a dangerous world, and your child died? That doesn't make cosmic sense to me.
Right. It's extra not right.
It's extra not right. You know, there's so many situations like that that I would sit with people. I remember there was a couple that came to a retreat, and I think I even wrote about them in there, whose 2-year-old daughter went out with grandma in New York. And they're sitting on a bench, and a random brick falls and kills the child. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
What? Like a random brick? Yeah. And here's the thing about this. I worked with her on her anger, and I remember she kept saying, I can't say it. And we're in a room with hundreds of people, and I said, what if you just said it? What if we understood it and you said it? And she goes, I hate old people. And I go, okay, good. Let's release the shame of that. And there were some people who were a little older in the room. And I said, I wonder, could you like really scream this out or hit the pillow or whatever? Could you release this anger? And she goes, I can't. And I said, we're going to do it with you. And I had the room going, we hate old people. And like to hear it, it would have sounded crazy.
Right.
And then she fell down in tears as she released it. And then the truth was spoken. You don't really hate old people. You hate that we live in a world that this person got 80 years and says they're not that happy. And your daughter got 2 years. You're not angry at old people. You're angry at the unfairness of the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the grief expert's son dies. And she's in the faith community. A brick falls, a police officer. This is our world.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things when we look at the psychological world, personalization does not help us. Death is the most personal thing that happens. When you're getting a divorce, feels pretty personal. And then you have to go, the betrayal, the divorce, it actually isn't about me. It's happening to me, but it's not about me. I don't believe there is a God that looked down and went, David Kessler, I'm going to get him. That's not the God that I believe in.
Correct.
I don't think there was a personal nature to it. And it's the most personal, brutal thing that's happened to me. And I don't think that brick chose that girl.
Right,
I don't think I think this is a life where loss happens, tragedy happens, period. That hurricane is not picking the houses.
Right. It is.
It just is.
It is.
It just is.
Yeah.
So those are nuances to get to. I would never get to these nuances with someone newly
Of course
in
not.
grief.
Of course not. Yeah.
But we're talking nuances here.
Yeah, and we're also, I think the meta here for me is we are story-making creatures.
Correct.
And on the back end of something so horrific, once I'm able to breathe, I get to pick the story that I write next.
Correct.
And one of those stories will imprison me forever.
Right.
And one of those stories will set me free.
And you may have been victimized, but it does not have to be a final victim story.
Right. And in fact, power is I'm not letting you victimize me anymore.
Correct. And I'm not going to victimize myself by living that story after the traumatic event has happened.
Right.
I always say, bad enough this stuff happened once. Like, who wants to relive it every day?
Yes. Which means I hate to use this word because it's unpopular, there's a choice.
Right. And that's why, we were talking about this book, this workbook, is because I always say to people, like, someone goes, I was told I have to talk to you and do my grief work. What's grief work? And I'm like, I'm going to take the tools and techniques that I've been teaching coaches and therapists for years and put them in a workbook, like we're sitting at your kitchen table and I'm walking you through some things.
Yes.
Now, as you know, my teacher was Kubler-Ross with the 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I hear her always telling me, tell them they're not linear. There's no model. There's not linear.
Yes.
We said that till, we're just blue in the face.
I know, but that's just the only way that new scientists
Well, we
have
want
to
to
try
reduce our, right.
Drives me
And
crazy.
look,
Drives me crazy.
there
Well,
was
shut up. It helps. It helps.
There was a big study at Yale that said, it's not denial, it's disbelief.
Just shut up.
And I'm
Just
like,
shut up.
I'm like, okay, tomatoes.
You know who does those studies? And this is me being critical. It's people who don't regularly sit with hurting people. Because you know who doesn't care to parse somebody who just lost their kid or somebody whose marriage just blew up? They don't. Was it disbelief? Stop.
And
can we just sit with hurting people?
Right. And it really is many times, it's the academic world. I got to tell you, people go, which is the right grief model for? I'm like, no one in grief ever says to me, which model, I mean, look, people sit with me and they go, I heard of you. You were taught by Kubler-Ross. I love the stages. I hate the stages. They're wrong. I'm like, so tell me,
it's good to meet you. Tell me what your name is.
Yeah, I'm not we're not even going to, and Kubler-Ross was that way.
Right.
On our book, page 1, we said, please let go of that. But, to me, when I wrote about meaning, the first reaction from people when they hear meaning is, there's no meaning in a horrible divorce, betrayal, death, murder. Of course not. Meaning's in us. It's what we do after.
Next, yeah.
It's what we do after. I find the biggest thing I wrestled with was acceptance. We think there's one big acceptance. There's a million of them. And I just want to see if I can find this for you here, just to take in this. Because people go, I know I'm trying to accept it, and they're just sort of they're just wrestling with finding a big acceptance. I wanted to break this down.
Yeah.
Let me just give you a few of these. If I truly accepted this death, and that could mean the death of the marriage, the death of betrayal, the death
of my
of
job,
trust,
whatever, yeah.
If I truly accepted this death, one thing I would change would be, okay? If I truly accepted this death, I would stop. Would that be revolving in my mind? If I truly accepted this death, I could finally. I have a co-author of this book. It's the person that's going to write it. Like, I want to help you tease out the places where you have accepted, where you can't accept, where you're, I mean, I was just at a conference and, a woman bought 3 books and she said, this is for the me today. This is for me in 3 months. This is the me in 6 months and in a year.
Yes.
Like, she knows it's all going to keep changing and she's going to keep growing. And the fact that she knows she's going to keep changing and growing and that there's not one state.
Download the Hallow app today and get 3 free months at hallow.com/Delony.